All right, Christian, welcome. Excited to have coffee with closers. Did you bring coffee? I did. I forgot to warn you. I don't know if you have yours.
I did. I did. I learned how to drink coffee when my daughter was born,
Yes, I bet.
and I've never stopped.
Actually, this time of the day, I've actually converted to sparkling water. It's coffee in the morning until around 10, and then I go to sparkling water. But
Oh, I'm trying that. I'm converting my coffee by 3 p.m.
yeah, I know. I used to be a coffee all day thing too. I sleep much better now. It's worth taking a look at. Well,
Absolutely.
Christian Chenier, great to be here. You were with RPM Expert, and you are in Charlotte, North Carolina, correct?
Yes, Charlotte, North Carolina.
And
Great.
is it the whole area? Is it the greater area? How would you kind of describe the market that you sell into?
I would say our market is about 100-mile radius around Charlotte. So we do a lot of the suburbs. We do Lake Norman. We do south of Charlotte, but we do have a footprint radius around the city.
Excellent. And so what I want to talk about today is you're about a year into the role, correct? Or a little
About 14 months now.
about 14 months. And let's start with that. Let's talk about what did you do before you found this role?
Sure. Well, my background is in business development. I love business development. I fell in love with it when I was 8 years old, selling my used toys at the flea market, and I got money back to buy new toys. So that seemed like a pretty good formula. And I have grown from there. I did go to undergrad and I got an MBA also, and did a lot of things in business development. But I also invested, I was successful, and I invested some of my money in real estate. So I was a self-manager doing property management myself. And after about 10 years as an investment banker, the income in investment banking is very lumpy because you get paid almost 100% commission and you're closing deals every couple of years. So when COVID hit, that was a little bit of a problem. So I decided to look for a secondary source of income. And long story short, I got involved with RPM, and I work with them in business development. I've really enjoyed it. 14 months in the role. Took a little while to get used to, had training wheels on in the beginning. Really grateful to Rent Scale and all the information that's been so helpful that I've learned, especially from Jason, who's awesome. And yeah, I've just executed, and thankfully last month was a phenomenal month. I surpassed all of my goals that I set out to from the beginning.
Amazing. Okay, well, let's just kind of put those numbers on the record, and then we'll circle back because then we're going to talk about kind of how you did that. So
Sure.
how would you sum up the first year in the role?
Well, the catalyst when I was doing 10 to 15 doors a month, which is pretty good. That's one every 2 days, and I'm not driving around in a Ferrari convertible, but making some money, paying some bills. And I went to a skill dev class one Friday, and fell out of my chair because somebody on there said, we'd like to congratulate so and so who just closed 43 doors. And I, was almost generating a little bit of an ego because I was closing 10 to 15 and I was pretty new. But when I saw someone close 43, I was like, wow, I've got to do that. And I remember driving back from dinner with my mom and dad, and I was telling my dad, hey, I thought I did well with 15. Someone did 43. And he said, I said, that would be a dream. And my dad said, quote, don't call it a dream, call it a plan. And when he said that, I realized I can do that. If someone else did it, I can do it. So let me go ahead and create a plan. Let's go ahead and do this. So I got home and I sketched out a plan with 3 parts: a goal, a plan, and then how I was going to execute it. The goal was to surpass 43. I wanted to be the next top dog on Skill Dev to say, hey, this guy beat 43. I ended up beating it by quite a few. I closed last month 95 doors. So how did I do it? The goal was the easy part, beat 43. The plan was a little more complicated. I had to really put a few brain cells into figuring out the plan. And
So I just want to put a pin in that because I want to talk about the plan. That's the meat, but just
sure.
kind of a 50,000 foot view, kind of getting that journey, that feeling a year into the role. One, I want to really celebrate your competitiveness, right? That you weren't making excuses why that guy had something you didn't have, or you couldn't hit that number, right? You said, well, I got a plan, So I just want to say that. I love that. I can tell you've got a competitive nature, which is great because you're also very collaborative. I've also seen you support everybody, which is an awesome mix. But how does it feel to be in the role? Just kind of, because I want to go deep into the details, but I also, for someone reading this who is, hiring their first BDM or somebody who just got the role, a year into it, you probably didn't know what to expect, right? So what are your takeaways? How do you feel about the role? What's good about it? What are the pros, the cons? Just kind of walk me through how you feel a year in.
Well, business development, depending on who your client is, you have to wear a different hat in so many different roles. So, I mean, I started a mortgage company, was a mortgage banker. I was an investment banker. In college, I sold neckties. I mean, you have to understand your client. And what I like about that is basically they're coming to us for a solution in this market, which is new for me. I'm getting all these different leads from various areas, but the one common thing that brings them all together is they're coming to you for a solution. You have to educate them that you are the one with the solution for them. And I like teaching. Someday I hope to be retired and I'm going to teach class at university or something. I like to teach. So in this role, I figured out one of the best ways to be kind of like a consultant and teach these people exactly what the solution I have, how it would help them. So I used a lot of tools that you guys gave me to execute that plan, which I wrote out, and it's worked well.
Well, it's great. And so is it a good role for you? Are you enjoying it? What is it that makes
I really do enjoy the role. I like the interaction. It's amazing how many investors are global. I would say 50% of our portfolio are people that live outside of state. We've got people in South America, Canada, California, which I think you can consider another world, China, Europe. I mean, so it's really cool. So the fascinating part about it is creating a relationship, executing a solution for these individuals, building their trust. And it's really cool. I've grown a lot of relationships. In 14 months, I've met people from all over the globe and created some really good solutions for them. A win-win. It's been really cool. That's the best part about the job. I love that aspect of it.
And you're talking to real estate investors. I think a lot of people get a little intimidated. They take on a role like this. They feel like they're entering a new world with new vocabulary. You seem to have no problem with it. You seem very focused on the people side. What has that journey been like to kind of learn the subject matter expertise and the rules and the regulations? Because you didn't really have a lot of exposure to that before this, right?
Yeah, honestly, it wasn't too tough. I mean, I do have multiple licenses. I have a Series 79, Series 63, Series 7. I have a lot of different licensing, and I've had to take, those kind of. I have an MBA, so I tend to absorb the information pretty quickly. What's much harder is learning how to sell, how to close a deal. It's like swimming. You can read about swimming all you want in the book. When you jump in the pool, you're learning how to swim. So same with this. I just jumped in. I took a very aggressive approach. I read a lot of information. It's definitely, if you've never been a BDM in property management, there's a lot to learn, especially in the beginning.
I agree. Yeah, coming from outside the industry, I can really relate to that. And you first get in and there's just all this language you've never heard before. But at the end of the day, it's, like you said, if you're a fast learner, you're able to learn some other, regulation and finance. I think it's a great point. There are just people out there that have no problem consuming new ideas, new concepts. Right. But so you mentioned you had to learn about sales, and obviously this is near and dear to my heart. Sure. What are some of the key recommendations or techniques or tips that work for you that you'd want to pass on to somebody else trying to replicate your success?
Well, I thought I was extremely successful in the beginning, closing 10 to 15 doors, and I was using a lot of the strategies that I shared with coworkers in my weekly meeting. But to take it to a higher level and go from 10 to 15 up to 43, I really had to focus on three things. Number one was better time management. If you're going to have to beat a goal of 43 doors in 1 month, you better have time management squeaky clean, because even closing 10 to 15 is one every 2 days, very time consuming. So for better time management, which was number one, what did I do? I really utilized the CRM to its max. There's a lot of automated functions, automated templates, all that. So the CRM was key. BombBomb was phenomenal. I recorded a lot of videos and sent videos. It was a way to earn the trust and educate the client. I could educate 20 clients at the click of a mouse and go eat lunch, versus meeting 20 people and spending 3 hours in round trip traffic, 60 hours. So what would you rather do? Send them a video in 60 seconds, educate 20 people, or do 60 hours of driving in rush hour? So I learned these kind of things. Also, you know, a lot of the coworker tips in all of our meetings, I kept a journal. Every time I heard good tips in these weekly meetings, so that I can make the best of that time, because it's an hour every week. That's a lot for a guy like me. I'm busy. I'm a single father. I've got a lot going on. So to make it worth it, I'd write tips in the journal and then review the journal. And I have a journal of all my little secrets with all sorts of things, you know, like using a breakup letter for ghosting, and all sorts of little tips like that. So first, the focus was on time management. I also use Zoom. Zoom is another tool for time management. In Charlotte, if I go meet someone in person, it could take a couple hours. I can do a Zoom call with them in half an hour. Again, the goal is to educate them on what the solution is for what's ailing them and how I'm the best for that solution. So you can do that on Zoom. And you have to feel out the person, because not all of them are going to be sold on Zoom. There's some old school people out there, but some of the newer, you know, tech savvy investors were fine with Zoom. You actually were adding value to them because they're busy too. They don't want to meet you for an hour and a half in their living room. So I use Zoom, and that was the first step, was to work on time management. The second step was to,
And just so you don't mind, I want to key in on that because I love what you're saying. You're just really focused on the numbers game at this point. You're saying, I got to set a goal.
right.
And that's if I'm going to close 10 people, that means I got to talk to 30 people, right? You were just kind of working the numbers. And so you said, like, how do I just do more, right? Not even do it better, just do more, which is a great point. I just want to bring that up because you haven't really focused on how to get better yet. You're just saying, I just need to do more. And I think it's such a powerful concept that so many of us overlook, right? Just being realistic.
Well, look, I was closing 10 to 15 doors.
Yeah.
It was taking me 60 hours a week. Yes. And guess how many hours in a week I can work? 60.
Yeah.
60. There's no more time. So if it meant I had to put in more time, I'm not going to hit 43. I'm going to keep hitting 10 to 15. So the first thing I had to do is say, okay, if this is all I have in a week to work, I'm going to have to redo my timing, because I'm going to keep ending up at 10 to 15. So that was why I just shared all that, because that freed up my hours. Went from 60. Now I can close 10 to 15 and 20. That gives me 40 hours to go after the big numbers.
Because you're managing your time better. You're leveraging technology. And I'm guessing because you're being more focused, right? You've got intention behind it. So great. I just didn't want what you just said is so powerful, and I didn't want you to just drop another bomb and us not hear, because it is true. I mean, the easiest thing that we can all ask ourselves is, how do we do more of what works? How do we just do more without getting better, without trying? Exactly. How do we just do more of what works, right? And you started there, and it sounds like it works. So go.
Plus, you want a healthy balance in life. I mean, we can all go out there and kill it, but we're going to burn out. I mean, look, probably everybody who watches this video can truly go out there and absolutely kill it. But then you're going to have a failed relationship. You're going to be miserable. You're going to be exhausted. You're not going to be healthy. So it's very important, if you want to really hit it out of the ballpark. Health, sleep, balance, that's all key. And you will not do that without good time management.
I agree. I know. I think anyone watching this, and you and I probably know this, we've just met those people. They work less than us, but they get more done. And it's like, well, what are you, superhuman? But you know what I mean?
Right.
Focus. Right. Like, how much are we doing that is not relevant to our goal?
So that led perfectly into the second function of my plan, which was first is time management. Boom. I used all the tools I just shared with you. The second was strategy. Who am I going to go after? How on earth did that person get 43 doors? I mean, I didn't even think I had 43 doors worth of leads. If every lead came in and I closed at 100% closing rate, I still wouldn't reach 43. So I had to switch up the strategy. And what I did there was I used another tool that we are given, which is data. Data is critical. And I looked at the data, 3 different parts. Number one is your closing ratio. And I looked at the trends of my closing ratio, and I was like near 100% with investors, referrals, real estate agents, direct leads, and even urgent accidental investors. Those were the people I was spending the least amount of time with. Boom, let's do this. They're not going to argue with me for 10 days. I can get them pretty quickly. So a good return on investment on time. What was not working for me, extremely frugal people are calling me up every other day to see if they can get $10 off on the on the property evaluation. That just, it became a pattern. Same with APM, low closing ratio. Same with self-managers, low closing ratio. Same with FSBOs, low closing ratio. Same with people shopping, telling me they called 500 property managers, low closing ratio. So I took those 60 hours and I said, I'm spending 50 of them on this group and 10 on the group that I have a low closing ratio on. So that was the second thing, strategy. And what that strategy created was a different group of people I was chasing for leads. I'm now going after multi-units, builders, GCs, accountants, and professional investors, because the amount of time spent to close them, I was getting a much higher number back than closing somebody with one property.
That was some gold right there. I really love that. I think in hindsight, it's really easy to understand what is a low use of our time, right? So you listed out, you said, hey, I was doing this pay-per-lead stuff and it wasn't working for me, or I was talking to people like X. Now I'm doing it Y. But some people are in it and they've only done the low volume activities. Like, do you have any tips for us to kind of understand? Like, because if we don't, like, just like you didn't know what to expect until you got introduced to Scale Club and you saw the scoreboard and people are talking about 40 numbers, you didn't know that, 10 doors a month wasn't the gold standard. So any tips for somebody kind of watching this who hasn't experienced the high productivity value so that they can understand how to judge what they're spending their time on?
Well, I had to make a mistake first to figure out which way to go, because when I got home and my dad said, don't call it a dream, call it a plan, I said, okay, I'm going to call Kareem and say, please crank up the volume on the APM leads. How much money do you have to spend? Because I was still in an exploration zone trying to figure out what would work. And that next month, I got more APM leads coming in, but I was working, forget 60 hours. I think I was even pushing 70 with the same results. But the reason was I was putting all my time in an area that I had the lowest closing ratio. These are people that, they just weren't the best leads. I was still closing some, but out of every 10 APM calls that's coming in, I'm spending tremendous amount of time in closing 2. So I eased up on all this different category of people. I looked at my lowest closing ratio, said, no, I'm not focusing there. I'm focusing here. And as I started generating relationships with agents, referrals start coming in, 100% close. So easy. It was like, wow, because it's not a cold lead, it's a warm lead. They're coming to you and the agents already said, this guy's the best. And then there were GCs and builders where I said, do you have any projects under construction where the owners are going to need a property manager? Again, the time invested in that, where there'd be PowerPoint presentations or meeting them for coffee, I could get a ton of doors back. Last month, part of my success was because I closed a large multi-unit. And when you divide the amount of time that went into that, even though it was more than closing a single family residence, I got, tons of doors back in return. So really, I've been using some business development strategies to go after multi-units. And ironically, the second tool we have besides closing ratio is we have data. We have industry data. This is an industry that's both cyclical and seasonal. So you have to make sure if you're renting jet skis, you better look at the weather and have a plan. So I wanted to have a plan for the seasonality of Christmas, Thanksgiving, and that kind of stuff, and a plan for the cyclicality of the fact that their Fed just raised rates from 2.5 to 8. So the multi-units are better for the entire organization, because by going after that, not only can I obtain the high number of doors, but it's better for my organization, because the multi-units, they have to stick around whether it's vacant or not. We are dealing with a major crisis right now where there's an oversupply of properties and it's taking longer. Gone are the days where you're renting it out in 24 hours, 2 days. It could take a month or two. Well, the investors and multi-unit, the GCs, all those kind of guys, they're cool. They're comfortable. They know, they're educated. You're sending them articles. They're cool. The other ones, I was closing APM leads, accidental investors, those kind of people. After a month, they're panicked. You lose it. And now the house is for sale because they can't carry it. So there was also some benefits on the tail end for the organization. And the truth is, the more value I bring to the organization, the more money I put in their pocket, the more money is going to end up in mine.
Well said. I got a couple detailed questions for you because I'm kind of listening to you thinking about what our audience might be thinking. So when you
Sure.
say multi-unit, that can mean a lot of things. What does a multi-unit target look like for you in terms of door count?
Fourplex all the way up to 120 doors.
Okay.
The last one I closed last month was a 5 individuals that put their money together and they built a multi-unit with over 50 doors. And they're not going to self-manage that. They need to find somebody. And it turned out to be great because we were able to really explain to them through PowerPoint presentations, through building the relationship, how we were the perfect choice. So I continue that strategy. And now this month, I've got another one that we're going to be signing this month, hopefully, maybe next month, 36 doors. One sale, 36 doors. And with the single family resident, the accidental investor, you have to put 3, 4, 5 hours into one door. That may even leave if it's vacant after 2 months. With the multi-unit and the investor, you're putting all that energy in and getting back 10, 15, 20, 100 doors, and they're not going to go anywhere. So that just made more sense to me overall, and it's more rewarding. And that's already in 14 months what got me to accomplish the goal of beating 43, which when I saw for the first time after my 3rd month into the business, I thought that was just insane. How on earth could anybody do that? So
Well, you shattered our scoreboard with what was it, 90 something doors last month?
95.
95. So you shattered a record on our
Yeah.
board here at Rent Scale, which we love. But I also know, I mean, it's not all multifamily, right? So how would you describe your target market when you're out? Because you said I like to spend a lot of time with GCs, with real estate agents. How are you letting them know who you want to talk to? How do you describe your ideal clients?
Well, to back up a second, I have to be careful because I am working for a small organization and they have to have a sustainable growth rate. Quite frankly, my boss is like, dude, slow down. You're an animal, please. You're like, they can't, when I started with them, they had 54 doors and they had also done an acquisition for another 50. So they had 100 doors. I've been there 14 months. We're approaching 400. So we have to build an infrastructure to support that. So I have to be a little bit careful and stick to a hybrid model where I am going after single family residences, but I'm also going after multi-unit. But the key is the single family residences I'm going after are ones where the return on investment is worth it. So out are the people that are super frugal, beating me to death. Out are the APM. The self-managers are tough. These are do-it-yourself people. They don't understand why you have to do a property valuation every 6 months. They ask if their neighbor's son can come do it. Those are tough. And then obviously when they're shopping, when they don't get that this is a service, they have it in their head that property management is a commodity. They're going to call everybody in the book. Those are tough sales. Whereas the single family residences that do work are investors. You have multiple investors that are buying 2, 3, 4 properties. Those are the best. Those are great. Those are just as good as multifamily unit is investors. They may not be building multifamily, but they're buying single family residences. So those are great. Referrals are great. I close 100% closing ratio on any referral. Agents are great because they will send you a single family residence, but resident that's investor. Excuse me. Let me drink some coffee here.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. I don't want to cut you off because it sounds like you're just.
And then lastly, the other single family resident is the urgent accidental investor, someone who just got relocated. They've got to do something quickly. Those ones I'm successful for. So again, it was very important to back up, look at your closing ratio. If you don't know your closing ratio on different targets, yeah, you're going to be wasting time like I did my first 90 days.
I really respect this about you, Christian, because you're getting that that you've got profitability in mind for the organization that you work for. So many people come into sales and they just want to close anything, right? If it's got a pulse, I gotta close that thing, and you're right off from the beginning. It sounds like you've got a strong qualification process, and maybe it's because you've got a lot of BD experience, like you said. Maybe it's an intuition, maybe it's an open conversation with your company about what that looks like, but somehow you seem to like right off the bat qualifying with like a discipline, which I believe in, and still closing the deals. So how are you still getting these people to talk to you and really attracting kind of the sweetheart deals that we all want.
Well, something very important that I realized that is parallel with that strategy is that I was starting to spin my wheels on people that maybe I didn't qualify properly, or I fed them down the pipeline to my team and it was coming back to bite me. I was starting to spend more and more of those 60 hours. 58 hours was to sales, the other 2 hours putting out fires. And then as the market has shifted, maybe 10 to 15 of those 60 hours are putting out fires. And these were accidental investors who, were frugal and shopping and can't carry a note, and was pulling out after it was only a month, saying they can't carry it. So I was spending so much time on that I realized what was good for my organization was also good for me. If I can give them deals that they're profiting on and are long-term investors, at the same time, it helps me because then I'm not spinning my wheels with these people. The stuff was coming back to me. So it was twofold. Yes, I'm a team player, but it also fits into the strategy of better time management.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. All right. So I want to back up a little bit because I'm taking notes as you're dropping all these diamonds here. You said, hey, I can go spend my time with real estate agents. And that clearly has worked from what I've heard about your strategy. It's one thing to say, go spend time with real estate agents, and people can really blow that, You've talked about time management. A lot of people might argue and say, well, that's just frugal. That's just a fruitless activity. Why would I go out there and do that? I got to drive to meet people, or I got to take these calls. So you're kind of you've got this focus where you're saying, I got to manage my time maniacally. I've also got to build relationships. So what does that good relationship look like? What do those conversations look like? What are you doing when you actually invest this time with real estate agents?
One thing, you're bringing them value. If you can bring them value, they'll come back to you. So when I'm going to real estate agents and I'm saying, hey, did you know that we have a tool on our website? When you're showing an investor these properties, you can put the information in and it'll spit you out the return on investment. 3-year, 5-year, and we learned that in Skill Dev. You guys had a really awesome one. We already had that tool. We had an Excel spreadsheet, but we've developed it further since that Skill Dev. Now we turned it into a tool that's live on the website. When someone calls me and they're an investor, I will do the property analysis on my own for them. But it's like the saying, you catch a fish, they have dinner for one night. You teach them how to fish, they're set for life. So I was teaching agents and investors how to use the tool on our website. So they're going on their website or coming to me where they can create something that is extremely valuable for their customer. The agents love that tool. And as a result, I was able to establish a pretty good following of agents who are like, wow, I've got an investor here. Let me call Christian. Let's do a rental analysis. Let's plug that into the property analysis, because then they're able to show their client their return on investment over 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. Extremely helpful when you can see on paper the return on investment you're going to get from your down payment.
That's amazing. Something that I can relate to is when you commit to networking and you build a network, sometimes you forget how hard it was in the beginning. Networks are have a momentum factor to them, right? It's the more you network, all of a sudden it's networking is easy, and you forget how hard it was in the early days. So coming into the business, were you doing something before? I know you gave us a great resume. How did you how are you finding these people? How are you getting these meetings?
So my boss, Kareem, who is a phenomenal man, had already started building relationships at Keller Williams. He also created our own proprietary property evaluation analysis that you can do on a spreadsheet. As you know, that developed more into RPM standard model that's on all their websites, because he's on the board there and said, hey, look what I'm doing. And I think that had a lot to do with the input that finalized this product. But he got me started with various real estate agents. He showed me exactly what he was doing. And I started going on a weekly basis, creating relationships with certain agents. You have to be careful because, some of them started calling me constantly for rental analysis. So you have to find a balance. You do have to be stern about your time with them, but it pretty quickly you can figure out where you're going to get a return and where you're not. So you do have to balance that carefully. But by bringing value to the agents and investors, when they're I've got so many investors I actually created another whole section in Lead Simple with Lead Simple's help. That's a trickle campaign for all investors. They call me, they don't have a property yet. They said, I'm looking in Charlotte. And thankfully for me, Charlotte was voted #1 in Zillow again this year for real estate. So there are people all over the country with some dry powder saying, I want to invest in Charlotte. Where do I go? Thankfully, they get a hold of me, and boom, the relationship it's the start of a good relationship. And I know that someday that's going to be money in my pocket. So I teach them how to use the tool. They're finding their properties, they're using our tool, and then randomly they're calling me for rental analysis. But that's a good way to build your pipeline. You can start, and over time, you'd be amazed. You start with 3 investors, then 10, and then after 14 months, I probably have a good 50 to 60 investors on trickle campaign and Lead Simple. And what they're getting is they're getting bomb videos and automated generated emails, just educating them about things they want to look for in a really good return on investment property in Charlotte.
Amazing. Just rough, back of the napkin, how many investors do you think you're talking to each month? Kind of new people saying
email or phone call, because 2 totally different things, email and phone call.
Just contacts. And I'm talking not about people that, hey, I'm looking for a property manager, I got a property. I'm talking about, I'm thinking about investing in your market. Can you help me? What does that look like? Is it like 3 people a month? Is it 30 people a month? Like, what does that volume look like?
65.
There's a very specific number that you have.
Yeah, well, I know exactly how it is, because I had it mixed in with my regular pipeline, and it was really it was tweaking the numbers inaccurately. You look at your pipeline, and a guy in California that wants to invest here and will buy in the next 2 years, I don't want him in there as, consultation complete. Yeah. It's really skewing the numbers. So I created another column, and I moved them all into passive investors with their own campaign. And I can look at it any given day. I can tell you exactly how many are in there. And I looked at this morning, there's 65. So
it's easy to forget that the original definition of a CRM was contact relation management, right? Like, obviously we teach and we use our CRM as a pipeline management tool, and a pipeline is somebody who's ready to buy, right? And so often people either use it one way too much. I think, this is my opinion from experience, that people use it as, I just need to get everybody in there and I need to build a network. And some people use it to manage their pipeline and close deals. And I think both, right? And so you knowing how to use that tool and organizing it where it's like, these are relationships I need to manage and these are deals I need to get done, right? It's 2 different mindsets. Would you agree?
Yeah, the CRM is critical. When I started a little mortgage company in my 30s, I grew to 10 guys, and we blew it out of the water. I was purchased by AmTrust Corporation after 3 years. I got a check that I was blown away. I was like, wow, you can do this? So that's how I ended up in investment banking. I realized you can build a company and sell it and go on vacation for a year and a half. So I was spoiled by that. But yeah, definitely the CRM, no matter what organization you're in, no matter what role you're in, if you're doing any sort of sales, and Lead Simple is phenomenal. I saw the Lead Simple guys at a convention recently. I shook their hand. I said, man, I've worked with a lot of CRMs, and I got to say, I do think Lead Simple is phenomenal. You can set up all sorts of campaigns to different targets, and it will save you a lot of time, and it will also improve your closing ratio, especially if you pair it with BombBomb and a video strategy.
All right, so I got so many questions. I know we got a little time left. Getting really exciting. Really excited because I just got one. Everything you tell me makes me want to ask more questions. I want to talk about sales cycle, because this is where it gets confusing. Everybody loves a black and white answer. I'm sure you can agree with this. I go on all these podcasts, or I speak on panels, and people say, what's a lead cycle? And then you and I just had this conversation that somebody calls you and they're not going to buy a property for another 6 months. And then you got someone that calls you and says, hey, I'm moving in 9 days. Can you help me? So what do you look at? How do you think about sales cycle and how many days it takes to close a deal?
It's a really good question, and it's a tough question because you have multiple categories in different sales cycles. There is no one sales cycle. That's the problem. You have sales cycles for the accidental investor. You have sales cycles for a builder that is giving you the lead of a GC that needs a property manager. You have sales cycles for these investors, passive investors. So I have multiple campaigns and each one is on a different sales cycle. I remember in the very beginning, I was told something like, oh, if they're in your CRM for 2 weeks, forget it after 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But I don't believe so. I mean, the truth is the entire world is my CRM. Everybody you see on it, what's the percentage of people involved in real estate? Right. So you have to be very careful not to rule people out who could eventually be money in your pocket. So I'm very OCD about organizing each target, each group, and then the sales cycle per group. The most immediate group, I would say, have a 30-day sales cycle. And those are the people whose property is vacant and it has to go. I mean, really, the sales cycle should be shorter. There's some sales cycles. My team is amazing. I give them so much credit because we're a small, tight team, but my team is amazing. And there's properties where the person has called me once on a Thursday evening, panicked, leaving town, property was vacant. We had it marketed and leased by that weekend. I mean, 24-hour turnaround. So it depends on the sense of urgency. The sense of urgency is what creates the type of sales cycle it drops in. So based on their sense of urgency, if the property is vacant or not, that helps me determine what bin to drop them into and what sales cycle to execute.
I love that. And I just want to, kind of punctuate full circle at the beginning of the call to now. You said, hey, I want to close more doors. Let me use a pay-per lead service like APM, which has its purpose. I have nothing bad to say about that. But I think if your entire outlook on your available pipeline and leads is I only want to talk to people that are calling me to make a decision the next week, you're losing excuse the language, a shitload of business, right? Because right? I mean, how many of your people are actually ready to make a decision the day that you come in contact with them? Any elaboration on that?
It's a hybrid model. When I broke 95 doors last month, that wasn't all multi-unit. I mean, my bread and butter, my meat and potatoes is still single family residence. It's just you have to pick and choose so you don't waste your time. But again, this month, if I get these 35 doors and I've got another 10 SFRs, I'm going to break. Remember, the goal all along was to beat that 43 that I heard on Skill Dev. I hope you recorded it because I'm going to watch it now and chuckle. I just couldn't believe it, but I may do it 2 months in a row. And again, it'll be a hybrid model. 35 units from a multi-unit. This is an investor that chose to be his own GC. He built it out. He doesn't want to manage the property. So, and that came from a referral from me chasing these builders and GC guys. So when you chase that group, you're going to get referrals. So it's a hybrid model. I don't know if that answers your question, but
it does. Do you know the sales cycle on that deal? That the biggest deal you closed, which was
yeah. Okay, perfect. That's a good question. The biggest deal I closed, the sales cycle was 12 months. And my boss always tells me I am a tenacious guy. He's like, geez, he says, I've been around the block. I've never met. If they're going to at some point need help from a property manager with 50, 60 doors, I am going to stick to them. They're not getting rid of me. As a matter of fact, in that one, there were 11 competitors. It was us against 10 other groups. And I did not give up. I used the CRM. I called, I focused on creating the relationship. They told me at the very beginning, no, but I do like that because no is the beginning of the sales cycle. That was step one. So
great point to share that story. So you actually did hear a no, and you persevered. Can you elaborate on it all? Why did you think, hey, what value did I have that I should come back? Did they misunderstand it? Did I not tell them something, or did maybe I just think
they said no because of a lack of experience? We were fairly new and we didn't have a lot of experience managing multi-unit properties. And over time of building the relationship, sharing our success, sharing our 5-star Google reviews, I eventually truly educated them that we are their number one choice. because we don't have 5 other multi-units with 80 doors that we're managing. This thing is going to be our number one focus. We're going to treat it with kid gloves. They're going to get service they've never imagined. We're going to do a phenomenal job. And we've already executed. We're now doing a weekly Zoom call with them. We have a task list. So we're going to do a good job. We're going to do a good job. It's critical we do a good job, because as we grow the infrastructure and go after more multi-units, we have to have an impeccable reputation. In this business, if you don't have a good reputation, if your Google reviews are 2.5, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Well, I love you sharing that. I mean, I love that he said no, and it's because you didn't have the experience. And I think a lot of people would say, I got no business pitching this deal because I haven't done the deal before. We all know, I mean, I can just share. I mean, as a salesperson, it's a different level of confidence when you're going after a whale and you've only killed fishes before versus going after, you know, fishes when you've killed whales a million times, right? And so it's just like, hey, we do this all the time. It's like not a big deal. But a lot of people watching this might say you don't want to punch above your weight. That deal might not be profitable, but you worked with ownership and management, and this was a profitable deal for you, right? You didn't have to discount to get this deal. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. We stuck to our guns. Remember that they were coming to us at the beginning seeking a solution. There were 10 other providers that could also create a solution, but our solution to what they're looking for was best. And I proved each single task, what they needed to be done, why we were the number one choice. And it's going to be a really good relationship. And I think it's going to truly open the doors, no pun intended, to our organization taking it to the next step, from being a smaller mom and pop organization to, I mean, we already won the number one RPM office out of 400 plus franchises twice now. We went to Nashville and got the award, and now we're just in Austin. So it would be really great to continue this trend. You just have to be careful, because as we grow and we start doing multi-units and the doors start expanding, if you can't sustain that growth, you're going to see the reflection in your Google reviews and your reputation. So it's absolutely critical. And my team is so awesome. I have all the confidence in the world that they will maintain the same quality of service as we grow and as my business development plan starts to expand the total number of doors in the portfolio.
So let's talk about this. Just when you started, because it's a newer company, which I love, and you know, obviously we go to the RPM national conferences, and we see your name, and we watch you guys walk on stage, which is amazing. Where was the company door wise when you started, and where are you now, a year later?
When I started, the company had 54 doors they closed on their own, and another 50 they had acquired, so about 100. My boss Kareem is a brilliant man. He's just an amazing man. He's an engineer. And then the support staff was really more into the logistics. So they didn't really have a BD guy. So I came on board as a BD guy. It took me 14 months. After the second month, I took off my training wheels, doing 10 to 15 every month, thinking I was killing it. And then you spoiled the party, my friend, because you put on there that someone got 43. And I went home with a tail under my legs going 43. But yeah, it's 14 months and we did it. And I think we can start doing this consistently. We are just approaching 400 doors, and I think it'd be great to get to 1,000.
So it's a 4x growth, roughly, right? So 4x again would take it to 1,200. So you did it once. Obviously, operations play a big part in that. The market plays a big part, but it's amazing. I just think, I think there's a big conversation around people saying, being choosy about your doors, which I agree with. And you guys are choosy about your doors. But unfortunately, I think people conflate being choosy with playing small. Like, oh, you can't be closing 30, 40 doors at a time and still being choosy. And you guys are, I think, the poster child for people that are being choosy, having, the right expectations, enforcing that, having a good, healthy culture, keeping people happy, thinking about reputation, not over-indexing to either total scale or just total satisfaction. And you guys are doing it all. And so I got to celebrate you. You guys are doing this at a really high level.
Well, one thing that was really difficult was to walk away from deals, walk away from doors. I did not know how to do that in the beginning, and that's where time management came in. And now I have no problem. If someone is going to be a nightmare, if it's not going to be, I can read it pretty quickly, and I walk away. And I never used to walk away. And now that I walk away, we are really starting to gain momentum as a team. The door numbers are going up, and it's a very tricky time because things are not leasing. I mean, it's, we've got a nationwide issue right here where properties are on the market 90 days, 120 days. You've got a promotion, reduced rent, and it's not moving. So we have to be very careful right now in this tricky environment. But yeah, I think we've created a plan that's going to work. But turning away people, if you can turn away one door and get 3 more closed in the same amount of time, then it was so well worth it, especially if that door doesn't turn out profitable in the long run anyway.
This is a great another dichotomy that you do so well. We're talking about tenacity and never giving up, and then you're also talking about time management, being efficient with your time. So I didn't get to ask you much about this. We geeked out a little bit on this, and I as a longtime salesperson and somebody who teaches sales, I cannot express how important time management is and how little of our time is being used as effectively as we think it is. So any parting shots on your time management tips that you want to share?
But it's cliche. It's work smart. Don't just work hard. Work smart too. And that's I was new in the role. I had to understand it. I had to learn a lot of the terminology. I kind of had to learn my way. But I've been around the block. I'm a veteran. I'm a professional, and I'm just glad it worked. But you have to work smart. And not just hard. And in the beginning, I was working hard, and all I was getting was 10 to 15 doors, and that's good, but not enough to satisfy me when someone puts up 43. So I decided to work smart, not just hard. I used every tool you guys are giving us, every tool I could get around. So there's a lot of tools, and it's amazing. The people that are complaining not hitting the numbers, ask them if they're using all the tools. You'll find they're using maybe 20% of the tools. Or, same with the time management. So you really have to focus hard. And again, it boils down to what I told you at the beginning of this interview. Set a goal, make a plan, and execute. And just do it like a robot, and you'll see the numbers.
Thank you for that. And I do agree. I mean, the plan, it's amazing how many people would love to fall in love with an excuse on why the plan's not going to work for them, or why that method won't work in my market. You know what I mean? And
and remember, I failed at the plan in the beginning. I did that, but the plan was to increase our budget on APM leads. That didn't work. So if your plan doesn't work, don't stay in it for a long time. You have to shift. Your plan may not work in the beginning. Now I have a plan that's working great. But if you set up a plan and you're not seeing the results, go back and analyze it. Say, why am I not seeing the results? But the closing ratio is critical. Make sure, no matter what, that you're looking at your closing ratio.
Yeah, and I'll just elaborate, from my own experience. I can say this, Christian, because you can probably relate to this. You're committed to the outcome. So I trust you when you say to me, hey, this plan's not working. Meanwhile, there are some people out there that are committed to their excuses, right? And they're going to be like, oh, I made one call. Like you said, hey, can we increase our budget? And then you felt personally convicted to go close all that business, right? You did everything you could. On the flip side, and I'm just saying this for commentary for people watching, if I didn't have somebody with the character and integrity of Christian, they may be like, well, I called the first 3 leads that came in and they weren't ready to buy tomorrow, and therefore it doesn't work, right? So you also got to always think through, how committed is this person to results before you just give up on a plan.
Absolutely. Well said. Exactly.
And you're committed, which is amazing. So, all right. Selfish question for my clients out there. What advice do you have for how to find somebody like you? How was the role positioned to you? What was attractive about the role? Because again, people go to school for X, people have had a job like Y before, and then we put out a property management business development role, and maybe you had never seen it before. I think a lot of people that take this role had never seen it before. What was it about it that you said, hey, this is what is attractive, and this is what people should be focused on?
Well, I've done the corporate life. I work for Bank of America and Wells Fargo. I've done the corporate life, and it just doesn't offer me the flexibility to be a single father raising a special needs child and taking care of a dad that has cancer. So the biggest attraction was the flexibility. Thankfully, I come from an organization where my boss, the owner, says, I don't care what you do, just put up the results. I'm a results-oriented, driven person. So I give him the results, and in exchange, he gives me flexibility, and that is worth gold. for me when my daughter's the most important thing in my life. So I was very attracted to flexibility. I was also attracted to the whole concept of property management because I was a self-manager myself with my own rental property. And then lastly, it just was non-corporate. I'm stepping into a small mom and pop organization with just really good people. And there's something so rewarding when everybody on the team benefits from everybody doing well. And you don't feel that as much in the corporate world unless you're lucky enough to have stock options. But I really was attracted to the small mom and pop. The challenge also, I'm stepping into something I didn't know about, and I've got it, and I felt responsible because the success of their organization is dependent on me. But it was a challenge, but it's been very exciting. I still have a long ways to go. I still have a lot of stuff to learn. Every day is a new day, and you never stop learning. You never, and remember that it's not a static environment. You're dealing with a cyclical and seasonal business. So you constantly have to be on your toes, looking for new tips, new trends, analyze the data. Now, I do give a lot of value to the data. The data speaks volumes. So you have to keep tweaking your plan and execution based on what the data is telling you.
I have a feeling that I'm speaking for a lot of people watching this, myself too. I think you and I need to do a round two about data, seasonal and cyclical. I know a lot of what you're talking about, but it sounds like you're really keyed in on that. And so, we would do a disservice in this quick interview to go into that. So maybe we're going to have you back on and talk about that, because I think
Sounds good. I'll have my coffee ready.
Well, let's just kind of wrap up and talk about, what's next for you, where you're going, what are you excited about? It's actually a cool time because it's kind of the end of the year, like you and I are talking about. What's got you motivated? What's next? Where are the goals at?
Well, so this time of the year is really good for business development. Like I said, you've got Thanksgiving, New Year's, and Christmas. That's a great opportunity to keep in touch with a lot of your pipeline. You can do it very efficiently thanks to today's technology. I mean, in the old days, to wish everyone Merry Christmas in your pipeline, you wouldn't have a Christmas. Now you can do it in 5 minutes at the push of a button. So I do like that time of the year. It's a great time of the year for business development people. And really what's next is, number one, is I want to ensure that the team does a phenomenal job on this big multi-unit we closed, because I've got a couple in the pipeline coming. So we have to kind of buckle down the hatches and focus on the logistics and executing the logistics of managing a multi-unit, because it's very different than a single family residence. But once we do that, the sky's the limit. I think I can really attend various conventions. I want to meet investors, GCs, and builders. Builders are a good source because once you've done a good job and you make them look good, they are working on other projects, and they will add value to their client by referring you to their client, because now that completes the spectrum. They now have a property manager who's going to take care of the leasing and the property management. So very important to create relationships with key builders around town, and that's what is next for me.
Amazing. Well, congratulations on this success. Appreciate your persistence, tenacity, energy. We've watched you kind of come into this community and learn the role, and not only do everything we gave you, use every tool, as you said, but then also share what's working, what's not, and I just think that's a big part of what makes us successful in the sales role, is not only having an appetite for getting better, but helping other people get better around you. And I've watched you do that. You got such a winning attitude. Is there anything else you want to share? Anything I didn't ask that you're like, hey, this is what I really want people to hear?
No, that's everything. I mean, really, I just would want to end with saying thank you, because I think rent scale is a really important part. We're out there kind of on the front lines. You can get beat up pretty bad. You can burn out very quickly. In every sales job that you're going to do throughout your life, you're going to go through periods where you hit a brick wall. But rent scale has a beautiful tendency to when you're doing these weekly calls, to see that you're not alone. You have these people, you can reach out. A lot of tips. So thank you for all of the tips, and for kind of bringing all these BDMs across the country together. I think it's a truly phenomenal thing. And I feel, the property managers that the owners that are not using your services, the return on investment has been phenomenal for us personally. So I just want to end by saying thank you. I've learned a lot I don't know if I'd be where I am right now today had I not been going to the weekly meetings and doing the skill devs. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Well, we do it for people just like you. This was amazing. And I really appreciate the time and the share.
Cool. All right, buddy. Thank you.